Hi, everyone. Oh, I am your father. All right. Wow, OK, that's a little loud. I don't know. To me, that's a little loud. I'll try and keep my voice a little softer than usual. Thank you very much for coming and joining me for this talk. I hope you're all having a great time at Unite. My name is Marc Tanenbaum. I'm a product manager on Artist Tools, but I'm also an engineer by training. And so for me, it's really exciting to kind of bring those worlds together and try and show off how we're making the world better by providing really cool tools for artists, for technical artists, and for engineers in ways that are going to improve your workflows. I think one of the key things that's been going on at Unity in the last year or two has been a real focus on trying to improve workflows. And we've been listening to you and some of the problems. And presets is really an example of us trying to address some real fundamental workflow problems. So I'm happy to be able to show it to you, show you what my team has been working on, and hopefully give you some ideas about how you can apply this within your own working environment. So let's start off with some obvious things. First off, what is a preset? So a preset is an asset. It lives in your project folder like other things that live in your projects folder. But what does it do? It sets properties and allows you to override defaults. So you can take the values of something like a wind component, or maybe a texture importer pixel value, and set it to something different than what Unity thought in our wisdom was the correct setting, right? So what does it work on? It works on anything that extends Unity objects. So that includes all your components, pretty much everything that shows up in the inspector. But it also works on importers and on managers, which in your project settings are those things that tell you the nature of your project. So it's really expressive, and it's flexible. You can do lots of things with it. And importantly, it's something that we've been making updates to and changes to. And I'm going to tell you, as I go through this, some of the changes we've made and how they're going to work for you. By the way, I only have a few slides, then we'll go to Unity. I don't like slides. I doubt any of you do either. But the few of these just kind of help us get grounded. So what does a preset look like? Well, here I've got an example, pretty common component. I'm sure you all use rigid body from time to time. And what I've done here is I've taken a rigid body. By default, a rigid body would have a mass of 1. It would use gravity, and it wouldn't be locked across any of the axes. But as you can see, I've changed the rigid body's mass to 10. I've turned off gravity, and I've locked the y-axis. And then I save it into a preset, and it appears like this in the asset. So why on earth would anyone do this? Well, that may not be the setup for your game or your project, but maybe it's the setup for mine. And you may want to do this with any number of things. Maybe when you import your textures, you want all your normals to go through a very particular process. We can make that happen. Maybe when you put a light onto the stage, you want to have particular properties that make sense within the context of your project, and just be that way so that you are less likely to make mistakes. That's sort of the idea here. So I want to cover one thing very particular here, because presets, it sounds a little like prefab, and it kind of even does a slightly similar trick, and I want to make sure we're clear on the difference. They are both assets. They are both useful for organization, for enforcement, but the prefab particularly maintains a link between the object that is the prefab, the thing that lives in the assets in the project folder that is an asset, and the instances of that prefab. Presets do not do this, and they do not do it by design, because you can use them to tweak things around and make changes, and then apply those changes and have them take effect later. And I'll explain all of that, and it'll make a lot of sense when we get to it. The other important thing about presets is prefabs pretty much happen at the game object level. You are attaching components, building things, and building things out, whereas presets happen at the component level. And so you are doing things to the light component, not to an object that has a light on it. And that's a huge distinction, and you'll see why as we go through this. And then, of course, as I've mentioned already, you can use presets on importers and managers, not a thing prefabs are useful for. So, told you not too many slides. Let's go to Unity. And I've got a scene set up. Let's maximize. Now, I'm going to do a little make-believe here. And the make-believe is that I am working on a game, and we are trying to establish a look. And then we're going to I'm going to trade roles from art director into production artist, and I'm going to sort of apply that look so that we can just sort of see how presets fit into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a light onto the stage. I'm going to find my lights. I can do this. OK, there we go. And I already know I don't actually really like that position, so I kind of cheated, and I set something up so this light would just be where I want it to be. OK, so without even telling you, I've just used presets twice. Whoa, OK, yeah, your minds aren't blown, I know. But we've done a couple of interesting things here with presets. The first one, as any astute person who uses Unity would know, is that lights in Unity are not by default yellow. They're white. So what I did was I set up a preset that is a yellow light, because for me, that made sense. I wanted to do that. Your game, maybe you want something different, for any number of possible use cases. So I've got this light here now, and let me show you exactly how that light knew that it needed to be yellow. So we have a thing in the project settings, let's dock that here, called the Preset Manager. And as you can see, I have set up my default light to go to a light preset. And that light preset lives in my project down here. Here it is. And hey, presto, there's your yellow light. So that was just nice. It was convenient. It meant that I didn't have to tweak it around a bit. And if you're in a production environment, you don't want to have to do that. You just want to have stuff be the way you want it to be. So let's go back to the scene. And in our test pretend scenario here, my art director has told me that he wants something a little more ghastly going on. Sorry, that was the wrong. I have to have my point light selected. You see, they're both yellow. You can get confused. OK, so we want something a little more horror game look to it. So I've put together this blue light. It's what my art director has decided we want. And then I'm going to save that out as a preset. So we've got, whoops, that's a little too close. There we go. So we got this button here. It's the preset button. I'm going to click it. And OK, it's a little out of the view. Here is, so you get this presets panel. And what you'll see is that any, and I hit the wrong preset button, because I hit the one on transform. Sorry. Hit the one on light. OK, so any preset, when you hit that button, of the same type, so I hit light, so you see all the light presets in my project. So I can, if I wanted to, I could select that. So if I wanted to, say, go to the yellow light, I click that, and I've got that. If I hit escape now, it goes back to what it was. But if I double-clicked on it, I would get that to the preset that I did. But what I want to do is I want to save this down. So let's save it. And I'm going to call this ceiling light preset. OK, so I now have that saved down as a preset. Can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me. Actually, that's probably even a little better. It's not quite as loud as the last one. OK. Going to do this one-handed. So I've saved down this preset, the ceiling light preset. Here you go. There it is in the, as an asset. I want to do the same thing. Light, point light. And I'm going to do the same thing for my side. I'm going to have a side light in this project. And again, I have a position I want that to be. And we've decided we want this one to be red. I'm going to speed up just a little bit here, because I lost a little time there. So there we go. I've got the look, more or less, that I'm happy with for the purpose of my project. So, and I need to save this also as a preset. OK. So I've got a couple presets. Life is good. And I'm basically done with the art director look development piece that I want to do. But what I've done here, by saving these out, is I've basically logged some decisions that we made. Right? We've decided as a team, and I want you to think about this. You're a one-man operation. You want to remember what you decided. You're a person operation. You want to agree on what you've done. You're a 100-person operation. It is, I'll watch my language, it is mission critical that you know what you agreed to. So we've done that now. I've put this in a place and we've said, these are what we're using for the ceiling, for the side light. Let me go over now to a different scene that is going to represent the work we're going to do and I don't need to save this because what I needed to save there was the preset. Okay, and, oh, hold on. This is hard to do with, okay. Just get myself to the right spot in the scene. So here you go. You can see we've got ceiling lights, we've got side lights. So one thing that I can do that's really super easy is I can just take a preset like the side light one, and I can, hold on, don't want to do it quite that way. Let's make sure I don't destroy the world. Okay, so I've got this light selected. Obviously this scene is a little boring. This might have been what we threw together when we were gray boxing, but it's not done. It definitely doesn't match the lighting we want. So I'm going to take a side light. I'm just going to drag it right on here. And boom, okay, so we've done presets. Big deal. I've got some magic here, and it's nice. But I want to show you a really cool thing I can do here. I'm going to just take a side light preset. I'm going to drag it right into the stage. And I'm going to have to get that positional thing again. Never mind, I'll bring it towards me. So I just created a game object. There you go. Whoop, it went by. So you saw it go by there. I've got a game object with that preset already on it. So that was just a drag and drop operation. Didn't need to do anything. So that's kind of neat, just in terms of quick workflow. These are nice tips and things you can do. Okay, now, if this is all well and good, I've shown you all these things. I can drag things around. I can even take multiple presets, cluster them together, drag them on. It'll create a new game object. So I can do lots of these things. But here's the thing. What I really want to do is I want to use this to kind of superpower things. These are all nice tweaks to help you out, what I've shown you so far. So we have, new in 19.3, something that we didn't have before, which is the ability to take multiple presets and apply them in a procedural fashion to your entire, basically to an entire scene or project. So I'm going to show you something, and it requires a little bit, it's a combination of a little bit of new feature and a little bit of new code. And the code you'll see is super simple. So I'm going to add 2 new light defaults. Light default 1 is ceiling. Light default 2 is going to be side light. And then I'm going to type ceiling, and I'm going to type side light. Okay, now, what is that doing? That is filtering my presets based on the name of the game object. This same principle would apply to an importer based on the name of the file. So, if the name of the game object has the word ceiling in it, it will use the ceiling preset, the ceiling light preset. If it has the name side light in it, it will use the side light preset. And if it doesn't match any of those, it'll go back to your good old default light, the one that has no name on it. Do I have a typo? Thank you. I usually do. Oh, goodness. Yes, you're right. Well, that saved me some time. Thank you, sir. Okay, so now, what I could do back in the scene is I could go and, well, number one, I could select all the side lights and drag a preset to it. I could create a bunch of new ones, and if their name was ceiling or name was side light, you'd get it automatically. But I want to do something a little more interesting because we have an API, and the API is pretty cool. And I just want to show you how your programmers can spend a little bit of effort and really enhance your tool chain. So what I've done is I've created, I'm going to open up my console here. I've created a couple of scripts. And I'm going to show you one of the 2 scripts, but I'm going to show how both of them work. The first one is, I call it report on light conformance. So I'm just going to run this. And you'll see down here, it says, this is really hard to do with a microphone. Okay. All right. So it says variations were detected, which means that my presets in the preset manager no longer match the lighting that it's seeing in the scene, because I got a bunch of ceiling lights that are not ceiling preset, and I got a bunch of side lights that are not side light preset. So I'm going to go and run the other script. And what this is doing is it's going to search through my scene, and it's going to enforce what I chose. Right? So I want you to, again, thinking about this in terms of a big studio, trying to maintain alignment, trying to do all the things that you agreed to do. It's really easy, either because somebody has their own novel idea about what your game should look like. We never have this, right? Or because we make mistakes along the way. Understandable. So this is a great way to be able to come back through and decide, are there things that vary, and then do those things make sense, and maybe push them back to where we need them to be. So let's quickly look at the code about how I got to that. Oh, good. Code, no longer there. I'm still good for a few minutes. I think I'm okay. All right, here we go. So I'm going to show you Okay, I'm going to show you the enforcement one rather than the one that just does the reporting. It's a little easier to just to grok. So basically, really simple code. Select all the lights in the scene. Nothing complicated about that. Loop through the lights. Pretty easy, right? And now here's the only bit of this that is even remotely novel. You're going to push for each light. You're going to find the preset that the preset manager says it should have and apply it. Done. So you think about that, and just a little simple code that makes it possible for your development team to help tool you up in whatever way you need. I mean, this is a simple example. You can do lots of things with this. It could be done for importers. It could be done for, as I'm doing here, for game objects. It can be done based on a folder. It could be you could do partial pieces like, I just want to pull the color of the light, but not everything else. So all these things are possible through the API. Okay. Whoops. Okay. I'm going to... It's amazing how much harder everything becomes when you have a microphone in your hand. There we go. Okay. So, there we go. Okay, great. So I'm just going to remind you of some of the stuff we've covered here. I will have a little time at the end for questions if anybody wants to ask them. So what are we talking about? We're talking about enhancing workflow, being able to simply make things happen faster. We're going to talk about validating your decisions. I showed you how you could log choices that you'd made, communicate them with your team, and keep them stored within the project so that people don't go astray. It's about aligning your team and preventing errors. We know these things happen. I'm not going to say it's anyone's fault. I mean, we all know that guy, right? But the point is, even if you know that guy, you can help fix it and make it better within your group. And then, of course, I've talked about enhancing pipeline tooling, being able to use the API, building out your own tooling around this. And then, of course, reporting, enforcing standards, something I showed you a very explicit example of. So that is pretty much it. Oh, sorry, one more. And then for those people, this is I would call this a bit of a corner case, but it's interesting because it's kind of totally different from everything else I've discussed. If you happen to be at a studio where you spin up lots of projects and you need to have predefined, essentially templates of your projects, the presets work in managers. So be cognizant of the fact that you can actually template your way through your projects. So basically, I just want to quickly say, look at this. You can look at this graph briefly and see, like, okay, for the small studio, workflow enhancement, decision validation. But as you work your way up, alignment becomes a really big deal. Building out pipeline tooling and eventually being able to just enforce those standards, this is a real help to a proper working studio. This is why I'm excited about this tool. This is not HDRP, this is not, the simulations guys were just on, like lots of amazing things happening at Unity. I would call this, it's a small feature, but it's just one of those things that I think once you start using, you will be really happy that you have started putting it into your workflow. So thank you very much. I have a couple of minutes for questions if anybody has any. Thanks. Sir. Oh.
It's just a quick question. When it came to the code that you was applying to actually set all the lighting data, what happens in the situation you have multiple default prefabs for one object with the same name?
Multiple default.
So let's say you got prefab. So let's say you got a light, you got maybe a couple of components, you got a transform as well, but you want to apply it for, let's say, 10 different game objects simultaneously.
Yeah.
Does that same one bit of code do all of those as well?
So actually, I should have pointed this out. There were prefabs in that scene.
Yes.
And they all got affected.
Okay.
Because the preset will affect at the component level, which is an override for a prefab.
Well, okay, so in that scenario, is it then possible to then, let's say I have 10 different types of prefabs, but I only want to use 7 of them?
You only want to apply the preset to 7 of those prefabs.
Yeah,
do you understand? Which case, well, it would be up to you to define the rules that you use. Like I was using name of the game object, but you could presumably, filter out what you selected in the first place, maybe based on the prefab that was a popular.
Because looking at the code, I wasn't sure if it was able to, let's say, get like an array string of that.
I was not doing that, but you could do that. And that would be probably a somewhat more sophisticated code case.
Thank you.
So my question was, with the preset manager there, what exactly is the functionality of the filter if you do not have any custom scripts? Is there any
Functionality of what?
of the filter if you do not have any custom scripts on it? Is there any functionality that is already done by Unity that uses the filter?
Yeah, so I mean, so just so I'm clear, you're saying, does the preset manager do anything if I'm not also applying code to it? Yeah, so no, the preset manager, any new game object that, any new component that appears that meets the terms of that filtering will follow those rules. So if I create a new game object called ceiling light, and then apply a light to it, or ceiling, because that was actually the filter I provided, and then add a light to it, it will get that preset. But maybe a more useful case would be to consider things like a texture importer. So let's say I make a convention at my company where all normals finish _normal. And then I put that into the _normal, because I don't want to apply the same settings to normals that I would apply, say, to a sprite. That would make no sense. But you want all normals to do that. So that would be more the kind of case that I think would meet to it. Oh, how am I for time? Because I don't know who's after me and I don't want to run over them.
It's 51 currently.
Okay, so I got a couple minutes here.
Is there any more filter options instead of just the object name? Can you filter by tag or layer or something like that?
Roadmap. Wait, very much in our plan. Hold on, I've gone like totally in here. Let me.
My question was, if you had a policy in your company that wasn't just managers, but it was across the whole company for particular components. So we use a lot of kind of external libraries, and we want, because it talks to external systems, and we want to have the same preset across a lot of that stuff. We usually do that kind of stuff at the moment through Prefab, through the package manager. Would it be possible with the system as it is at the moment, do you think, to have presets working through a package, so pull in a package and have those presets be applied?
Yeah, okay, so I think the way I would handle that case would be I'd have a central repo for those shared assets, and I would just keep those presets in that shared repo and bring them in. That's at least the answer that's coming to my head. Like, if you have that, you might also want to have manager presets in there to help govern the general nature, but for the specific component level ones, those don't travel with the management so much, they travel with the asset, which is probably true of the management ones as well. So but probably that's the way I would do it, is have an upstream repo to handle that case. Okay. I should also mention, by the way, coming back to your question, is that although I did say roadmap, but in code you could do everything you just said. So the API allows for all that sort of searching. We just haven't added it to the UX yet. So I probably should have been more precise about that. You had a question.
With the model importer, it kind of does stuff before the preset. So how do we how do we change what that spits out before it happens?
If it happens before the actual import, then I think presets are not going to grab it. So I think at that point, we're probably looking for a next-gen solution, not quite this. I should get back to you on that, though. I'm not 100% sure that I'm right about that. Yeah, I would want to check with the team, but I know where to find you. Again, how am I for time? I just don't want to run over. Someone else is going to be coming on here in a minute. One more minute. I have time for one more question.
In situations you do it by code and you set presets, how hard is it to revert?
I believe I can do an undo. I could test that. Yeah, let's check afterwards. Let's see. I'm pretty sure that it actually happens through. It goes through the standard. You know, it goes through the standard pipeline of undo stack, so it should be fine. Anyway, I'm out of time. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you coming. Take care.